What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It has been a while, but we had to come back for this card. 12 fights, UFC Vegas 73, Mackenzie Dern, Angela Hill. We're here with DFS picks for DraftKings, FanDuel, lineup advice, best bets, everything you need to crush this UFC card. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com. And Jake, the last month or so, we've been talking in Discord and in our private conversations how bad the cards have been. Not necessarily from a fight quality perspective, just the amount of fights and fighters dropping out and missing weight and stuff. And I'm just happy we have 12 fights for now. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, man, I'm so over these 11 fight cards. I mean, they could have just taken like 1 week off and just like put all those fights on all the other cards and just, made a month's worth of good cards to take away one, but of course not. So we've got 12. Yeah, hopefully we can keep them, man. We got like guys like Orion Kosei that are definitely going to test that.
Man, that is the most precarious fight possible right now. And we'll get into all this very shortly. If you're new here, welcome. What we normally do is we break down the main event from a betting and DFS perspective, how you play the fight for your high risk and your low risk DFS lineups. We'll talk about debuting fighters, but we actually have zero on this card. Instead, we'll play good fighter, good matchup, bad matchup. We take a dive into all the fighters that have less than 4 fights under their belt into the UFC, give some context to their stats, and there are quite a few on here, and I have a feeling it'll be more bad fighter than good fighter in that game. And then we'll talk about a fight you have to play in DFS. We'll discuss our favorite prize picks play. You see the promo code here on screen. And we'll give our favorite stream parlay of the week, two of our favorite prop bets for this card. Jake, let's get started. Mackenzie Dern, Angela Hill, a short notice 5-rounder. Just a couple weeks ago, these two ladies were notified that it would be a 5-round event. Mackenzie Dern, no stranger to 5-round events, especially here at the Apex. But we have 9,100 on DraftKings versus 7,100 on FanDuel. I know you gave out to your Patreon members Angela Hill moneyline early in the week. How do you see this fight playing out? And then, more importantly, based on the context of this slate, how are we playing this in high risk and low risk lineups?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. We know who Mackenzie Dern is. She's a world-class grappler, submission specialist, sloppy on the feet. She'll throw, she's durable, but she's going to lose the striking battle. So she needs to get the fight to the ground. The biggest talking point of the week, I'm sure everyone has heard it that's listened to anything, is she has an 11% takedown accuracy. Angela Hill, 77% takedown defense. Doesn't really tell the full story. I mean, Dern can get fights to the ground by doing all sorts of crazy stuff, grabbing a limb, pulling guard, jumping on people's backs. And, like, doesn't need to land a takedown to engage in the grappling. But, Hill's a vet. She's smart. She's been around for a while. You would think that she would stay away from the grappling. I listened to an interview with her that made me a little bit nervous after I'd already bet her. And she's like, you know what? If I knock her down, I'm going to go down there and look for the choke. I was like, no,
Well,
don't do that. Just stay on your feet. What were you going to say?
no, I'm just saying that doesn't sound very optimal. But I also listened to in Dern's interview, obviously a lot of stuff going on during her camp. But she was like, maybe I don't force it to the ground as much. Try to win these rounds with the judges. So, maybe this fight goes longer than her inside the distance line may indicate. But who knows, right? Like we don't. It's hard to say what these fighters are thinking before and during fights. But either way, it seems pretty straightforward how this is going to play out. What do you think about high risk contests for these two? And what about low risk?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a bunch of mind games if Hill's saying she's going to grapple and Dern saying she's not going to grapple.
Right.
But yeah, man, striker versus grappler. I think Hill can win the decision. If Hill wins the decision, I think we should see decent volume on both sides. Or, I mean, for that matter, if Dern somehow wins the decision, which she's been in 2 5-round fights, both in her last 3 matches, she lost decisions in both of those. But her last one, it was super high volume. It was split. She scored 93, 94 DraftKings points in the loss. So she did show a ceiling there. I mean, she showed a floor and a ceiling, but she would have scored 124 if that had gone her way, which I don't think many people were expecting. Normally it's like, oh, she needs the early submission or else she's going to get easily outlanded, like she did to Marina Rodriguez 3 fights ago, where she got like tripled up in striking in that fight. But in high risk, I think they both have pretty decent floors. Um, Maybe not the biggest ceilings, although, after looking at Dern's last results, I guess you could argue if she can get the fight to the ground, and the way she scored well in that last fight was just landing a ton of ground strikes, just like a million clinch strikes, which we normally don't really see out of her, but she has said that she wants to strike more. She realizes that she's not going to win on the scorecards with pure grappling. And she talked about throwing more elbows, throwing more clinch strikes, being a little bit busier, which is all a good sign for DFS. So I think she has shown more of a ceiling, maybe at least theoretically, than she has on the DraftKings stat sheet in the past, where it's like, oh, if she gets a submission, she's not going to put up a huge score. So at 9,100, she could still get left out of winning lineups, even if she gets a round one, round two submission. But maybe in a crazy high volume decision, maybe she could score 120 points. At that point on this card, I would say she would definitely be in the winning lineup. So I think both fighters can get there. Hill is a value play. Dern is on, potentially maybe having more upside than she's shown in the past type of play. And then they both have solid floors, which make it a good fight to stack in low risk. Because, I mean, you look at Dern's last fight, it was like 184 combined DraftKings points. And we were saying maybe that's a risky one to stack in low risk, because if she gets a round one submission, she scores 95 and Jan would have scored 0. But, she proved that wasn't the case. And you look at the odds of this going the distance, I think it's like negative 135 right now to go the distance. It's a really good chance that she doesn't get the early submission. And if she does not, we expect it to go long. And we should see enough volume that it makes sense to stack it in low risk on DraftKings.
Yeah, which I think contrasts what our initial opinion was when we first saw this was the 5-rounder on this card. It's like, oh, well, maybe we can get away with not stacking in low risk. But yeah, coming around and looking at the top options, especially around Dern, Hill is the easy play in low risk. Around Dern, again, it's just the safest route to stack it in low risk. And yeah, with the amount of line movement and the amount of live underdogs, certainly ways Hill gets priced out even if she wins in high risk contests. In Dern, if she gets an untimely submission, can get priced out as well. So lots of ways they fail in high risk. Pretty good, safe, low risk options. All right, no debuting fighters, Jake. So let's talk about our favorite game: good fighter, bad fighter, good matchup, bad matchup. These are fighters have less than 4 fights under their belt, and we'll start from the earliest fight of the night to the latest fight of the night. I'll throw out the name. You tell me if they're actually good or they're actually bad, because they only have limited tape, at least in the UFC, and limited stats, and what this matchup is like for them in DFS. We'll start with my boy Thimba Gorimbo, 8K on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's a bad fighter, but man, this is a great matchup for Timba. I mean, Sato is like one of the most submittable fighters in the 170-pound division. He's been submitted 3 times. He just got knocked out in like 44 seconds by Brian Battle. But basically, every time he ends up on the ground, he's getting controlled for huge amounts of time. It was kind of crazy that Gunnar Nelson wasn't able to get him out of there. But Sato just sat there kind of selling out to not get submitted. So it's like when he doesn't get submitted, he just gets controlled for entire fights. So Timba Garimbo on DraftKings especially, great play. A little more dependent on finding the submission on FanDuel. But yeah, no, it's a great spot for him.
Sounds good. All right, in the biggest favorite on the card, north of minus 1,000 in some spots, Natalia Silva, who we were very high on coming into the UFC, and we have not gotten any breaks on, at least on her money lines, outside of maybe her debut against Jazz Divigius. But she is 2-0 in the UFC. She is minus 1,000 or so against Victoria Leonardo here. I assume she is good. Leonardo is bad. Disagree if you want, but how does this matchup look for both of them?
Yeah, nah, I mean, you nailed it right there. I mean, Leonardo is terrible. Silva looks really solid. Silva's still, she's only 26 years old. She's at like a point in her career where she's still growing. Like, we're probably going to see some growing pains at some point where she just randomly gets controlled for, half a fight or loses somehow. I mean, where you wouldn't expect her to, but really good movement, good striking, good wrestling, all the potential to score well here. But yeah, she scored 85 points in both of her first 2 UFC fights. So how completely confident can we be as the most expensive fighter on the card that she's going to return value at 9,700? She could, or she could not. I mean, there's a lot of ways she fails here, but she definitely has a ton of upside and a high floor. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about Leonardo other than this is going to be her last UFC fight.
Let me ask you this really quickly, right? For low risk contests, we talk about safety all the time. Silva, from a betting markets perspective, is obviously one of the safest fighters, but we also know that playing large money line female favorites generally doesn't work out that well in low risk contests. Is she the exception here based on the rest of the slate?
I think it depends on what you do. I was actually playing around with low risk lineups earlier, and I don't think I'm actually going to end up playing her, kind of based on the price and what, the combinations of what it allows you to do. I just don't think that we have a guaranteed high enough ceiling So you're kind of making a big sacrifice by playing her. But I mean, obviously she has a really safe floor. So it kind of depends on what you're doing with the rest of your lineup.
Fair enough. All right, moving on down, we have Nick Fiore in his second fight against Chase Hooper.
Yeah, man, I'm not sold on this guy. One dimensional grappler, and I think he's actually the worst grappler in this matchup. So I'm gonna call him a bad fighter in a bad matchup.
Fair enough. The betting markets do not agree, but these are types of cards, as you and I discussed earlier today, that we often do very well on when there's a lot of disagreement between us and the betting markets, and especially when it's a lot of low-level competition like it is on this card. All right, speaking of low-level competition and questionable decisions, the previously mentioned most precarious fight on the card, Orion Kosi, Gilbert Urbina. Kosi looked like death on the scales and in face-offs today. Urbina dropping a weight class after a long time off and really hasn't fought a lot in the last few years. So are they good? Are they bad? Is this a good matchup? Is it a bad matchup for either?
I think both these guys are bad. Theoretically, it's a good matchup for both of them just because they're both facing a bad opponent. you know, a super low level fight. I think either guy could finish the other, but then the kind of the tipping point for me was at weigh-ins today. I mean, Kosi looked absolutely terrible on the scale, missed weight by a pound and a half, but I mean, he looked like he was about to pass out. So I'm still just hoping this fight actually happens because you never know. Like, I mean, he could have some medical issue related to the weight cut between now and tomorrow. I mean, hopefully not after lock, but yeah, man. Both terrible fighters, but they're both grapplers. I guess there's always a slight chance that like their grappling cancels each other out to some extent. But man, these guys are bad.
High ceiling, right? We assume for this fight, whoever wins.
Yeah, man. I would say high ceiling on both sides unless we somehow get like a grappling stalemate, which I don't think really happens. So yeah, man. I think both guys have high ceilings. Whoever wins, I think both guys are alive for a finisher.
All right, Vanessa Demopoulos. She doesn't technically qualify, but she has 4 fights under her belt. Is she good or bad?
I don't think she's good. I think she's way too hittable on the feet. She's been to what 3 or 4 UFC fights have gone the distance. She couldn't submit Maria Oliveira, whatever her name is, last fight, and that's like one of the most submittable people around. Demopoulos got lucky to beat Jin Yu Fry in a decision. She almost got knocked out by Juarez Gomez just before that. I mean, she's been pretty fortunate to be on a 3-fight winning streak right now, but I think she's improving. She just left Fight Ready. They kind of kicked her out, and now, I mean, they kicked her out because they didn't want her to be with the manager anymore. It wasn't like her personally, and she was like, "I'm staying with my manager. I'm going to Factory X." I don't know what that was all about, but the new team. She just missed weight by a pound and a half, which I don't know. New team, maybe a new weight cutting process with new people around you. I don't know, but I don't think she's a good fighter. But I think she's a good fighter for DFS, man, because she's super aggressive. She'll grapple. She'll strike. She leaves it all out there. She's durable. She's never been finished. The weight miss is a little concerning, but she's getting a 37-year-old opponent here. So I think I think she's like decent when it comes to DFS, but in terms of like real life fighters, she's never gonna like make a run in the division or anything.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Moving on down in this fight. I mean, this card is a bunch of Spider-Man meme. This fighter is exactly like the other fighter. As we've talked about many
Right.
times before, the UFC likes to test, especially younger fighters, give them opponents who excel in areas where they have weaknesses. That's not the case on this card. It's like basically the same fighter fighting each other in every single fight. And I don't think there's a more perfect representation of that than Borshev versus Mahashate, who Borshev, God forbid someone even tries to take him down. And then Mahashate has never attempted a takedown in any of the tape we've ever found in his life. So this should be a stand-up striking battle. Who's the better striker? Are they actually good in striking? And how do you see this matchup playing out for DFS?
Man, I hope these guys come out and one of them just immediately fakes a takedown just to mess with the other. Just
And it's
like
like,
an old
nah, not
school,
so
like
good.
yeah. Right. Just kidding, just kidding. Yeah, man, they're like you said, they're both pure strikers. Literally have never seen either guy attempt a takedown ever. So who knows? Like if you're their coaches, I feel like you have to see them. Be like, all right, we're at least gonna work on some wrestling, and we're gonna try a takedown here. But we'll see. We'll see if that actually happens. I mean, how much improvements could they make? Since the last time they fought, I think Boers fought in October, and then Mahashate fought in December. So it hasn't been like a crazy amount of time. I think it's just going to be a really fun striking battle, and I think that Slava is going to win it, man. I really like his body shots. He gets really nasty with these lead left hooks to the body, man. He's always targeting the liver, whether it's kicks, punches, like always targeting the liver. The guy has like 100 Russian kickboxing fights or something. So, he only has 9 MMA fights, which is why he sucks at wrestling and sucks at MMA. But god damn, the guy can strike, man. I think he's finally going to get to show it here. And he's facing a 23-year-old opponent. Like, is Mahashate really going to be ready for that? I don't think he will be, but he has power, so you never know. I mean, I think both guys are live for a finish, but I'm taking Slava Borshev to keep his job. 1-2 in the UFC, needs a win here not to get cut. I think he can win it, man. Good chance for a knockout, but it won't be entirely shocking if he just like fights to win and not fighting to get a finish and somehow wins a decision. So it is kind of boom or bust, but I like his chances to boom, man. I think he's got a really good shot to get a knockout in the first 2 rounds here.
I will say, based on the expected stand-up battle, both these guys are likely better suited for FanDuel scoring system this week, and in general, but especially this week. And to your other point, if there would be a fighter who would grapple here, I would have to think it's Mahashate, just being younger and being in MMA from the start, unlike Slavaclaw. So maybe the grappling upside does reside on that side, but again, it's really tough and very unlikely that either guy shoots here. So again, for your bingo cards, just lock that in for the first minute takedown attempt for either one of these guys. And I think we're good. We have one more fighter, Emily Ducote. 2 fights in the UFC, 1-1. Impressed in her debut against Jessica Penne. Got completely outboxed by Angela Hill last time out. Now she's fighting Luby Godinez. Godinez stepping in on short notice.
Yeah, I think Ducote is decent. She's a little bit low volume. She doesn't use her wrestling enough. She's a BJJ black belt. She was a high school and a college wrestler, and she just almost never looks for takedowns. So she's only using her wrestling basically for defensive purposes. No one has landed a takedown in either of her UFC fights, but if Lupi does get her down, then Ducote would be a submission threat. So I think she's a really tough matchup for Lupe, but I think Lupi is also a tough matchup for Ducote. So I don't think this is a great matchup for either of them to really excel necessarily. But Ducote is a decent fighter. I don't think it's a good matchup though, man. I don't think Lupi's ever been finished. Yeah, she's never been finished. And I really think that based on Ducote's style for DFS, she needs a finish here to crack tournament winning lineup.
Fair enough. Yeah, lots of live dogs on the slate, lots of high ceiling dogs on the slate. Yeah, she'll need either some winning variants around her in the dog, or finish. So, all right, that'll do it. Let's take a breath for all of the bad fighters on the card. Now, let's close out the show with our favorite prize picks play, fight the target in DFS, and our stream parlay of the week. If you like what you've seen so far, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. It's free to do so. That just helps you get notified when we go live or upload any UFC DFS videos. Again, it helps us out. Obviously, the more subscribers we have, great, but it also helps you find these videos when they are uploaded. And give us a thumbs up if you like the content. We always appreciate that. It helps others find these videos too. All right, you see the promo code here on screen. Use code OCCUPY at Prize Picks. Get a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. You can parlay all sorts of prop lines together. They have really soft UFC lines. Jake, which one stands out to you the most this week?
Really like the Anthony Hernandez over 3 takedowns. When he's been finding grappling success, he's landing 6, 8 takedowns. Unless he gets knocked out early, I think that's the way this fails. But I really like his chances to not get knocked out early. So I think he's going to be landing takedowns in bunches. I think he can easily clear 3.
Most questionable money line move of the week, right, in this fight?
Dude, I've been waiting for pushback all week on that. He opened at like -300. Last I checked at Caesars, he was down to like -190. I keep waiting to hear about some injury or something. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, it looks like a perfect matchup for him outside of the potential for him to get knocked out. But, to find wrestling success and going against a guy with cardio issues, and Hernandez is an absolute cardio machine, it's a crazy line move to me. I'm just keeping an eye on it, and when it bottoms out, I'll probably put something on it. But it's wild, man. I'm just like in the back of my head, I'm like, as soon as this fight's over, we're gonna find out like he tore his ACL like a week ago or something.
I know, dude. It's so fishy because he's now technically mispriced on DraftKings, which is crazy, given how much movement it has and given what kind of matchup this is. So, like you, I'm also very curious to see what this was all about. So, All right, fight the target in DFS. We talked about Kosi and Urbina. Is there another fight that sticks out to you as whoever wins should likely score very well in DFS?
Yeah, I mean, I think the super obvious one is the Buckley Fiallo fight. I mean, someone's getting knocked out there. There's always the chance that it's like an early round two knockout that doesn't score well, but I mean, honestly, that's the low hanging fruit. It's not like I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know, but that's the one where it's like both sides I think are pretty live. Like I think you could say like, oh yeah, target the Hernandez Shabazian fight because if Shabazian wins, it's going to be a round one knockout. It's going to score well, but like I think I'm just like so like despite the line move, I think that's just such a tough matchup for Shabazian that I think that's like it's less of a 50-50 than Buckley Fiallo.
Fair enough. Totally fair. All right, and we'll close it out with our stream parlay of the week. We haven't talked about this fight whatsoever, but I was kind of shocked to see the decision line for Ilir Latifi, who, if we look, he does have a finish over OSP back in 2018. I'm still scrolling. Did get a knockout over a couple guys nearly a decade ago. But for him to win by decision in this matchup is 400 plus 400 or better, despite his money line being where it is. That's an easy auto bet for me, Jake. So my side of the parlay will be Latifi plus 400 by decision.
Yeah, man, I love that line. Since moving up to heavyweight, all three of his fights have been like super slow paced decisions. Yeah, it seems like a crazy line. But
And again, I'm not saying he's going to win. I know you're picking him to win, but even if you like Nascimento to win, the value on the decision discrepancy odds, based on his money line, is too great to pass up.
totally agree. And I'm gonna pair it with Anthony Hernandez round two or round three sub. Just really setting myself up for pain here when we find out he's coming in injured, Sunday. But if he's healthy, man, these lines just don't make sense to me. I think it's now like plus 470 on round two or round three
It's
sub. Like
crazy.
basically all of his wins are late round submissions in the UFC. Yeah, I mean, for a guy that opened at negative 300 and you can get plus 470 now on a late sub, and I think he's got 3 late subs in the UFC in his what does he have 4 wins and 3 early round submissions. I mean, dude's always going for submissions on the mat. Like you're like, oh, maybe he'll go for ground and pound. Nope, immediately trying to lock up a sub just like every time. So I think there's pretty good value there, but I'm definitely prepared to be hurt when he comes out with only one leg.
I mean, I don't want to
So
dwell on this too much, right? But Shabazian took the time off, got back, but it's not like he fought a killer in his last fight and didn't even look that great until he got the finish. So I don't know, man. Spidey senses
right.
are
I mean,
tingling all over.
he fought like a gasser in his last fight in Dolce, and then Dolce slowed down and got finished. I mean, that's what Dolce does in fights. But I don't know, man. We'll see. I'm really interested to see it. I'm gonna be playing Hernandez like he's healthy and like he's good to go, and then just prepared. Maybe a couple extra hedges based on this line move. But I don't know, man. I think people just like Shabazian. I'm just hoping there isn't some secret injury, but that parlay is going to be plus 2750, so pretty solid there.
Beauty of that of Hernandez and Shabazian fighting is not until the second to last fight of the night. So are currently winning, and our fights remaining are gonna look beautiful until that fight. So it'll all come down to that. So that'll do it for this video. It's plus 2750 on the stream parlay. The daily plug will be out by the time this video is posted. That is on OccupyFantasy.com. The link is in the description below. Has Jake's top plays for the slate for low risk and high risk contests, his best bets, lineup construction tips, favorite prize picks plays, everything you need to digest this slate, all in the daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com. The Occupy model is up and running, ranks every fighter, FanDuel, and DraftKings with projected ownership. Our lineup builder has been live since yesterday for this slate. Allows you to build up to 300 lineups using our optimal lineup criteria. And of course, Jake's site is up. Got the sheet, breaks down every single fight from a betting and DFS perspective. He's got his premium content. He's got the archive. MMADFS.com, OccupyFantasy.com. 2 ways to crush UFC DFS. So for Jake, follow him on Twitter at MMA at DFS underscore MMA. Jesus Christ, sorry, Jake. And me at Brian Jester FF. That'll do it for this video. Appreciate you listening, and good luck at UFC Vegas 73.